Okay. So we have a bit of time here to ask participants to share something from your session. So if you'd like, you can raise your hand or turn on your mic, and yeah, it's open for any comments.
Hey Joy, it's Colette. I was just in JJ's session listening in, and I was really impressed that there were a few folks who came to his session for day 2, like 2 days in a row, because there was such great discussion. So I thought I'd just share that with everyone. Thanks, JJ.
Yes, I was in this session yesterday, and I really liked how interactive it was, and just asking people about their needs and what they've used and how it's working for them, kind of thing. So I really liked that session as well. Glad you guys enjoyed it. Enjoyed it that much to go back. Any other comments or even questions?
Just had a buy one get one special, just people didn't know.
Nice.
Today, Ken was talking about metadata, and also the IT department setting up the file management. And I shared in there that I agreed with him how if you're managing your own files, then your IT department comes along and they take your files and they move them all over the place, and you're like wondering why did you do that? And they have their own reasons of putting their electronic files in certain directories. It takes more time trying to find those files. And he mentioned something about permissions too. When the IT department allows different people to see your files, some of your work is highly confidential. Like with my work with the band, I was the registration officer, so a lot of my files were very, very private. So, and then I found out there was a couple of those files I didn't even have access to. So I just wanted to say I agreed with him. Oh, and I did have one comment. I think it was Lisa that was talking about the minutes, and she said you could have records of decisions or a summary of the discussion. So I'm thinking you would summarize the discussion after the meeting, right? Because it's pretty hard to summarize the discussion while they're discussing, right? So I just wanted to add that. But very good session this morning. I really enjoyed it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for that. Sorry.
Just to add on to that records of decision discussion, the other thing that I really appreciate when I'm on council is having a summary of all the action items, and also like in the next, like it always we have our executive assistant have all the action items listed, and also what their status is. Where are they at between, so from the because we meet bi-weekly, so from the previous chief and council meeting to this chief and council meeting, have they been done? Because it's nothing like trying to keep track of everything that's supposed to, the directions that we give to staff, and then being able to track it. Records of decisions are great, but those are decisions that are made. And then there's also action items that usually accompany some of the other items that aren't necessarily RODs. So just thought I'd add that.
Thank you, Brenna. Any other comments from today's sessions?
I'm super excited to apply what I've learned during these 2 days to my organization in the quality management department. And we're trying to develop a new quality management system. And just in order to we really want to achieve excellence, and you can't do that without good information management and quality assurance. So I'm super excited to bring all this back to my department and implement it into our quality management system.
Thank
Hi,
you. Oh, sorry.
it's Susan. I have collected a lot of information which will be beneficial to us. And one of the things I'm very grateful for, I'm already researching, is the trail maps site that the trail mark site that was offered up from one of the attendees. So as a lands manager, I can see this being an incredible, useful tool to us. So thank you for that.
Great to hear. Let's see, is Jahan on, or can we take some more comments?
I'm here.
Okay. Okay, so let's move on to our final plenary. Jahan Casey, the Director of the First Nations Public Service Secretariat, will be moderating the panel. So I'll hand it off to you now, Jahan. Thank you.
Thanks, and my apologies. I think I have a slight delay, so if I seem like I'm answering slowly, I apologize for that. Thank you, everybody. I think most of you heard me yesterday. My name is Jahan Casey. I'm the Director of FMPSS. I'm calling today from the traditional territory of the Silks Okanagan people, and I'm absolutely thrilled to have gotten to start you off yesterday and to be here to end and to hear some of what you just shared, in particular the individual who said she was so excited to take this work. I think it was Susan, back to your organization. Was that you? Just now where you said you're excited to take what you learned today and implement it in your organization. That's ideal. I want to get that printed on a t-shirt. That's the most we could possibly ask for out of 2 days like this. I'm so pleased that it was helpful and useful. And I know a number of you, you've been speaking about getting started with records and information management, moving forward, what to deal with all those files when you have them in a system and what kind of system. But you do, like Susan said, you have to go do something else. You have to do something next. You have to go put it into practice. And I'm hopeful that today, and with our 2 fantastic panelists today, we'll be able to move you forward with those next steps. So I'm going to start by asking our 2 panelists to introduce themselves. Maybe I'll start with, since I see her pop up on the screen here, Michelle, if you would just tell us a little bit about who you are. And I think that the group probably knows you by now, but for anyone who's just joining, where you're from and what you do.
Great, thanks, Jahan. Hello, everyone. I'm Michelle Baroka. I'm a records and information management consultant and archivist. I am located in the southeast area of British Columbia in the traditional and unceded territory of the Tinaja Nation. I've been working in RIM for over 20 years, and I work with local governments and I work with First Nations within BC and Yukon. And I've been very fortunate to be a presenter, facilitator on behalf of FMPSS for the last few years. So very excited to be here. Thank you.
Thanks, Michelle. And Stephanie, if you could say a bit about yourself as well.
Yeah, hi there, everybody. I am so pleased to be here with everybody today. My name is Stephanie Tam, and I am on the unceded territory of the Algonquin people. And I'm honored to be here today to close off this panel with Michelle. It's been a very informative 2 days, and it's been great to hear everybody speaking. I bring over 20 years of experience of IM, but I am new to the IM change management role. So I'm the manager of the change management unit for our IM branch. So I'm really excited to put all together what we've learned today and see what the next steps are and how we can go forward to implementing that change and getting people on board with IM and the new principles and stuff that we've learned today, and hopefully they can adopt those. So excited to be here. Thanks for having me.
There you go. Thanks, Stephanie. And maybe I'll go straight to you, Stephanie, talking about change management. Because that's huge with records and information management. There's what you do on paper, which seems simple. There you go. And then you put a bunch of human beings into the mix and suddenly it all goes sideways. I heard a little bit of Bobby Henry speaking yesterday, and I've heard her use this analogy before about trying to be in your kitchen when someone's in there trying to tell you to reorganize things and to get rid of extra spoons. And I always hear that analogy she uses and think that's exactly it. When I'm working away and I'm stressed and I know exactly where I've put all my files, even though they're in the worst possible place, and my RIM manager comes in and tells me to move it all over, I'm going, no, I have them here. And this is where I want them. It doesn't matter that it makes no sense to anybody else. Which obviously doesn't work for a whole organization. If we were all working in organizations of one, then that might help. But Stephanie, maybe you could talk a little bit about what people do going back to their organization and how they deal with that human aspect of implementing RIM and change management.
For sure. I'd love to take it to the next step. So just to put it into context too, like I have a really small team, change management team. We don't have a lot of resources, and we're managing to put out our comms about change management to 2 big departments. Everything okay with the recording? There we go.
I'm not sure. Sorry, keep going.
That's okay. No problem. So I want to make it known that, we do have some small teams that work for us with information management, right? So we do have some information management officers, and we have some training at our disposal when it comes to GC docs. But all these teams are really small. And I know a lot of people here wear a lot of different hats, and not everybody has a dedicated training team or an IMO or information management officer or RIMS expert. But, I think the biggest takeaway, when we're talking about change management, is to really keep those doors of communication open, right? To make sure that, we're communicating out what we can to the end user, to try to explain the importance of practicing good IM and, managing that information properly, and just making sure we're there to feed back to them some information and just being there to help them through the changes that they might have. I think as long as we keep those doors open, I think we can successfully, show that information management is on our side. It's something that's really important. It's our backbone of our company, of our business, of what we do. And as long as we manage these properly, then it can benefit not just the end user, but also the organization. So I did create a quick little, I was lucky enough to have a student, and that's what we do too. I get a lot of students that come in that help us. So if people are looking for different resources, I find having students fresh out of school come in and help out for certain things is really beneficial. So for the change team, we do things such as infographics or videos, how-to guides. So these are things that they have knowledge of, right? So of course you want to make sure that we have students that are knowledgeable for the things that they do. So we put together this little infographic that I think we're going to be sharing with you guys right now. And this is something that you can all take away with you. And it's just showing what change management really is all about, and some things that maybe you guys can take away with you after hearing about the importance of RIM, and like how are we going to get our information to the end user so that they start to apply these principles, right? So and also I want to mention that it doesn't matter if you're a big company or a small company or a business. I'll be honest, even in our department, we are putting IM in the forefront. We have to go back to the basics and re-communicate out to everybody in the department, saying, this is why IM is important. This is how it's going to benefit you. And this is how it's going to help you in the long run to manage your information, to make sure that we have those important stories, going forward in the years to come. And it's not, in the cloud on your personal drive, but it's somewhere where things can be saved, where everybody can kind of access them, and getting down to the core of, what's information of resources as a business value versus transitory information. So just to paint a big picture of, you're not alone, nobody's alone. I think everybody's kind of in that same boat. And I think these are messages that keep having to go out constantly. And we want to keep that messaging simple to understand. That's what we try to do with our change management team, is to really make that conversation easy to understand in language that everybody will understand, and point them into the direction of tools, if we have them, to kind of help them on their way. So basically, what is change management? Change management is a structured approach to implement change in an organization. And really, that takeaway is recognizing that change can be a painful process. It really can be, right? So we have to look at the people side of the change and really make sure we're trying to get down to their level to be like, how can we make this easy for you? So when we're given a project on the change team, we kind of look at these 4 core principles of change management, which is understand, plan, implement, and communicate. So, going forward, I mentioned that, we have to bring IM to the forefront. So in the month of September and October, we plan to have an IM awareness campaign for our department. So I need to sit down with the head of IM and see what their goals are. So I need to understand how to successfully promote this change, right? So we ask a bunch of questions like, why do you need to change? What are the key objectives you want to gain from this? What are the benefits of the change to the organization? How will it impact people positively, right? That what's in it for me? How will it affect the way that the people work? And what will people need to do to successfully achieve this change? So this is all information that we take and we create strategic communications for. We take that information and we put it in a nice email or whatever kind of format that we can to get out to our employees. So people understand what is happening, what's expected of them, and that we're here for them. Next, we go into that planning phase of things that you need to consider, such as the sponsorship. And I think that is one of the key aspects of trying to promote that change, is to really have people that are high-level supporters of what you want to talk about and to promote that change. So for us, it's senior management. It might be minister, deputy ministers. It's that initial communication that goes out to everybody saying, hey, this is what is important. This is, IM is very important. This is what our goal is at the end of the day, and we hope that you're on board with this. We also want to see what kind of involvement is needed. And sometimes, like I said, you might not have the resources internally to do that. You might have to look externally, but it's sort of, what do we need to design to implement and do this change? So do we have to have training teams? Do we, or do we have to create a how-to guide? What kind of things are we going to need? Can we do that internally, or do we have to outsource that? But these are things that would help, adapt the change a little bit better. Next, you have that buy-in, which is the change is the most effective, right? We want people to buy into this concept that IM, for instance, is important. It's something that is if we, that can carry out throughout our work, no matter where we go. If we have good IM principles and practices, we can apply that anywhere we go. And then, of course, the impact. Think about what successes should look like, and how will you predict and assess the impact of change that you need to make? What are the goals that you would like to achieve? Next, we also want to look at the implementation phase. And we want to make sure that everybody is supported through the change, right? And this is where those champions come into play. I know in previous conversations, that's really, I think, a really big, important feature that we need to have is people or change agents that can help support this change and trickle down to the people below us. So that could be managers or supervisors. I think they might actually have the biggest role to play when it comes to IM, in the sense that, if I'm doing this, then I think you can do this too, right? Like, let's get into those good habits. I'm going to encourage you, and I'm going to make sure that I'm right here with you and I'm doing this with you. I'm also going to make sure that you have the tools that you need to achieve this. So whether it's an infographic that you walk away with, or training sessions that we're able to provide. I know a lot of people talk about GC Docs in prior sessions. I was, a part of. And that's a really big pain point. We know that, and that could be for any kind of repository that we're trying to put our information in. So, if we can make sure that we have, drop-in sessions, regular drop-in sessions, which is something that we've implemented over at ISC, because we did, go out to the people and say, okay, after, using it for a certain amount of time, we know this is a pain point. So we're going to make sure that we're available to you to answer those questions that you might have. And then, of course, you have the communicate part of everything, right? And what we do in the change team is we have this ADKAR change management model. So if we scroll down a little bit, you can see what ADKAR stands for. And really, it's that awareness, desire, knowledge, ability, and the reinforcement of the change. So awareness is, I know that this change is coming and why it's happening. We are making sure that we announce the change that's happening to employees ahead of time is always ideal, right? But we're also explaining that reasoning of why we're doing this, right? That's that initial communication that goes out. What is, we understand that there could be pain points, but this is what, the benefit of doing this could be. And we're here for you and we understand. And we also give people the opportunity to ask questions and make suggestions too at this point. So then we can reassess and make sure that we have the proper tools going forward to help with that change. We also have the desire aspect, which is I see how this change will benefit me and I'm looking forward to supporting it. It's gauging the employees' reactions to the change and making sure that we address the what's in it for me. Why am I going to do this, right? So if we can harness that, then we'll have a better buy-in. Then we have the knowledge, is I understand how this change will take place and my role in it. This is where we would provide the training to people, those handouts, the tools that they need in order to be able to achieve this change. So we want to make sure that we have those and not just throwing the change at people. We want to make sure that we're there supporting them. And then you have the ability, which is I have those necessary tools and knowledge to adapt these changes successfully. But then we also maybe want to schedule practice runs for certain things, right? You have those demo groups or being like, I'm going to sit with you and making sure that, you understand how to do this. And we're going to monitor and we're going to address those maybe pain points and feedback and going forward. So when we get to that reinforcement stage, which is the last one, and we want those people to permanently adopt and incorporate these changes, then we can better monitor and even survey out and say, hey, is this working for you? Where did we go wrong? Or what did we do right? And how can we go forward with this? So, so this is all the things that we consider in change management when we want to communicate out an idea or a change or adopt those new existing principles of IAM. And these are things that we have to just always take into consideration and always, like I said in the beginning, be there for the end user, making sure that, they're not alone. We're here for them. So, and I like I said, I understand maybe, not everybody has those resources to always be there. But, even if you just say, the line of communication is open, feel free to reach out and, we'll make sure that you get through this, because if you can do that, then the chance of adoption is going to be a lot higher. And people are going to understand that IAM is, it's vital. It's vital for any organization. So we can keep that information of business value going for years to come. So I hope this has been helpful and looking forward to what Michelle has to say, and hopefully we have a really good discussion after about change. So thanks, everybody.
Thank you, Stephanie. I'm sure that has been helpful. It was incredibly helpful to me. I made a point of asking our tech, Callan, behind the scenes to make sure I knew where I could get that infographic, because it's fabulous. So they're going to put the link. It's the Hightail link where all of your other material from the past 2 days, any PowerPoints or decks or anything you've been able to access, but they're going to make sure that that goes back in the chat so you can download that infographic. Stephanie, you mentioned a student did that, and I'm sure this has come up over the past few days. There you go. Amory's just added it. Thank you. I can't speak highly enough about students. FMPSS had the privilege of hiring a student from the UBC School. I know we've also worked with, I think it was Coquitlam First Nation who hired another one that we worked with closely from the UBC School. They have a stream specifically dedicated to First Nations records management in their master's program. And those students need to do a certain level of professional credits as part of their co-op portion of their graduating requirements. And they are always looking for places to go work. So if you are a First Nation and you want a student who is graduating with their master's degree, and I think it's archival, and I'm going to get this totally wrong. Michelle will correct me, I'm sure, when she comes on, archival studies, and they're brilliant. Reach out to us at FNPSS. We can put you in touch with them. We don't have funding available for their salary, but we can also help you access some of the funding that you might be able to apply for some of their salaries over the summer as well. And I can't say enough good things about them.
Yeah, and just to feed off of that, students are great. I'll be honest, like I said, I have a small team, but all of my team is pretty much made up of students fresh out of school, wanting an opportunity to to learn about what they've already practiced and learned in school, and then coming into the workforce and really helping out that way. So it's a win-win, really, and they have fresh ideas and it's great. So I can't say enough. I definitely advocate for them.
There we go. And with that, I'll turn it over to Michelle, who, as she said, she's been, we've been privileged to have her facilitating all kinds of FNPSS training for a number of years. And Michelle, I know you've gotten a ton of First Nations started with RIM. How do you keep it going? What do you do to make sure that it doesn't die after that first month of enthusiasm when people get in there? I'll turn it over to you.
Great, thanks, Jahan. That's the key, right? It's not just the setting it up and training people up, and here's our policy, look how pretty it is, here's our documented procedures, but it's really, how do we get these practices to be embedded into the natural everyday processes in any organization, right? First Nations organizations have, in my experience, a lot of turnover with their staff, which directly affects how implementation is going to proceed, how quickly, in other words, okay? So as I've been mentioning to those who have joined me in RIM 101, records management is a continual work in progress. It doesn't stop. So you may need to sell it, right? We know we have to sell this. So in terms of the senior management, it's absolutely critical that our senior managers and our leadership are on board. They understand and they value the importance of this work. It's not enough to say, yep, I support you. What does that really mean? Right? So in my mind and in my experience, what it really comes down to, it's accountability, right? It's one thing to say, we need to have our vision. We need to know we're all pointed in the same direction. These are our goals and objectives that we're trying to reach. How we get there is quite likely going to be incremental, right? Nothing of this sort, of this caliber, happens overnight, right? This is a time-intensive process. It happens over years. So having it as part of your organization's corporate culture, meaning the understanding and the appreciation of the value of RIM, that travels far. That really is important. So whether it becomes a standing item on senior management meeting agendas, where you have a RIM check-in or an information management check-in component, that's really important. So having those lines of communication open, as Stephanie pointed out, is critical. Okay, so it absolutely has to be not only do what I say, right? but do as I do. So leading by example, it's really important that we have that. And by accountability, I mean, we are actually responsible for doing various tasks and performing responsibilities within our organizations by way of managing our records, because by the way, all the work we do results in recorded information, right? So whether it's through databases or paper files or what have you, recordings, it all boils down to we have records. And so if we can't access them, we're at a deficit, right? This is a problem for us in operating if we can't get at the information we need when we need it. So having it ingrained as part of the corporate culture is really ideal. Easier said than done, of course, but this is where your senior managers or your leadership are the ones to really say, reminding people, reminding those other decision makers within the organization that this is why we're doing this. And yes, there's going to be some bumps along the road, but it's important that we manage that we surpass that. So part of what how I would suggest to gain, once you've gained that momentum, how do you keep it going? Or even how do you start that momentum in the first place? Aligning RIM with your organization's strategic priorities. That is so important because really, as I mentioned, RIM underpins all the work that we're doing, right? So when you think about, well, we have annual reports, we've got, financial plans, we could have, lands management plans and so on. But how often are we seeing records and information management plans? Those are often really lacking, right? Even having an IT plan quite often is lacking. So elevating RIM to that place of equal importance with the other important assets that we have within our organization. So it's not just our finance, it's not just our people, not just our infrastructure. It's the information that underpins it all. That is also a key asset that we have to address as such. So sometimes what we have to do, even to get that momentum started and potentially to keep it going, is understanding what those worst case scenarios look like. What happens if we don't do this? What happens if we just maintain the status quo? There's costs associated to that too. There's risk associated with that as well. So really carefully thinking about, what does this look like if we're caught in this worst case scenario? Sometimes we have to scare ourselves a little bit or perhaps those decision makers in order to really have the message heard, right? Because we don't want to be in the place of this is bad. This is really bad. If only we did this, right? If only we had scanned our resolutions because we had a fire in our band hall, as examples. There's endless ones. But really understanding the current situation, what are the costs of doing business the way we are right now versus the way that we could be by integrating RIM good practices with our daily workflows. I also think it's really important that there are assigned responsibilities within your organization, whether or not you have a records manager or not. Okay, so what I mean is someone has to actually be responsible for ensuring that people are utilizing the system, they're understanding the system, they have a go-to person for clarification, if not multiple people. Ideally, you want a team. You want a team in your organization who are going to be your champions, that are going to work together and they have a common voice, right? And with those responsibilities, where I mentioned before, that accountability, we have to be able to, especially as senior managers, to ensure we're overseeing our staff and we're actually encouraging them and we're allowing them to have time built into their schedules for managing records. Right? Especially when it's off the side of the desk, we don't have a lot of time for this. We're wearing so many hats. When does it become a priority? We know it's important, but how do we actually make that stick? One suggestion I have for you, Friday afternoons, block 2 hours off in your calendar. That's your RIM time. You go through your emails, you start purging all your transitory emails there, you start filing your emails into the appropriate folders. You might be purging, or not purging necessarily, but reviewing your file folders, and you could review and purge the closed ones. You really need some uninterrupted time to do these tasks. It doesn't work when you're answering phones and you have people dropping in, and which is lovely, but it doesn't help you stay focused on what do I actually need to do to keep my information organized. The information that's within my control, we know that the information belongs to the organization, right? Not us as individuals. So it's really important, I believe, that we're able to actually schedule some of that time right into our calendars. Just block it off. If you need to use it for something, of course, but if you don't plan for it, it really won't happen. So I think that's really important. So yes, leading by example, absolutely critical, and keeping it going. So having it part of just the regular course of business, right? So one other thought here is when you're onboarding staff, include a RIM component to that process. Doesn't have to be extremely lengthy, but enough to say, these are the tools we're using. This is the methodology we're using. And by the way, here's our handbook or our procedures manual that you can reference and you can refer, and it'll show you, it'll walk you through step by step, so that if I'm not here, the moment that you're needing those questions answered, you still have support, right? There's still something there. So there's also a document that I would like to share with you. I don't, Emery, can I just share my screen, or is that going to be shared? Just checking.
Yeah, you can share your screen.
Okay, okay, great. So what I'd like to do is share this diagram. So it's going to look not as flashy, not as nice as Stephanie's, but I'm hoping that you're going to find some value in this. So this is a slide that we've utilized within the RIM MTAs, which are the Management Training Academies provided by the FMPSS. And this is a table that I've shared in those sessions to help articulate just why do we have false starts, or why is it that we're just unable to really keep our momentum going forward? So in managing complex change, there's a number of components here that are being identified, okay? So vision, we need to know, what does this look, where are we trying to take this? Where are we going? You need skills, okay? Not everybody has the same skill set. So ensure you have people in those roles that are adept to this kind of work. Incentives. Sometimes we need to incentivize people, right? They might be a little hesitant. So what can we do to encourage their participation? One of the most fabulous forms of incentives that I've ever heard was an organization who provided 2 vacation days, extra vacation days to their staff by meeting a deadline, a RIM deadline, for inventorying their department's records. 2 free days off. Isn't that amazing? It might be chocolate or pizza. It might not be days off, but there may be some kind of incentive that you can offer to help keep things moving forward. You need resources, right? You absolutely need resources. So that's monetary, as well as physical spaces and so on. You also need an action plan. How do we get from here to where we want to go? What does that look like? What kind of timeframes are involved? Who's responsible for what? Okay. So if you have those 5 key components in place, you will see timely change occur in your organization. However, if there are 1 or more of those pieces missing, you will find confusion, anxiety, gradual change, frustration, and false starts, or a combination thereof. Okay. So I share this with you in hopes that it provides you with a bit of a snapshot in terms of what are those pieces I need and why might we be experiencing what we're experiencing by way of change in our organization. So being able to identify it, right? So as Stephanie was saying, you need to understand what your situation is and what your goals are in order to put it into practice. So I hope you find some value with this. I'll stop sharing my screen now. Great. So that's what I have for my tips and tricks and suggestions for you. So thank you very much.
Thank you, all of you. And Wendy, I just saw your hand. I'm just gonna do one more plug one moment because Michelle has, I'm sure it's come up over the past 2 days, but Michelle, along with some of our others, Ken, Bobby, who you met, put in a lot of time working on something called our RIM Assessment Toolkit, which is basically an outline of how to get going with RIM in your organization, especially if you don't have a RIM manager, how to start working with your other units, templates, step-by-step, questionnaires, everything like that. And one of the perks you get by using our RIM toolkit is you get access to someone like Michelle. And after this panel, I'm going to be reaching out to see if we can get access to someone like Stephanie, and probably a few other people that you've met over the past 2 days, to guide you along the way. FMPSS is a small amount of funding for mentoring from some of these RIM experts. So we can put you in touch with one of these individuals to help answer your questions, guide you along the process, deal with those challenges that you didn't anticipate, or when you get stuck in one of those 5 areas that Michelle just outlined and you don't know how to get back out of it, things like that. So I highly recommend you reach out to it. We'll make sure that, oh, there, Amory is on top of things, has the link in the chat, and we'll make sure that Michelle's document is also available, that link too. Wendy's saying she wants it. And I'll stop now. Wendy, did you have another question, or were you just looking to make sure you got the document?
Yeah, I just wanted that document because I think people, something like that really shows people why they're feeling the way that they're feeling when it comes to change. And I just think it's great because it's so helpful. Like I know, as in one of the things yesterday, and I always tell people one of the ways I handle change with people is I tell them, like, we can't become the way of the dinosaur. Like they're extinct now because they didn't adjust and adapt. So we need to not do that. So, but that just really shows a really good snapshot of like why we need to do it and how we need to do it. And right, people, it's like following a map. People feel more comfortable when they can see it, right? So thank you.
You're welcome. I'll turn it over to questions while I'm talking about just other resources. The other thing that FMPSS provides is something called coaching circles, which again, Michelle has supported us at. I will be recruiting Stephanie. This is because we know you take 2 days of training. As you go back to your office, you have this brilliant plan on how you're going to implement it, and it never goes as you plan. So being able to come back for just an hour, we don't have agendas for these meetings. We just put someone like Michelle, an expert, Bobby, Ken, like I said, Stephanie, well, you're going to hear from me, in a room, a Zoom room for an hour with anyone who wants to sign up, who's taken our training related to RIM, who can just ask those questions, and perhaps even hear from other participants. We hear often someone, it's not just the expert who's going to say, oh, well, this is how you should overcome that. It's more often than not someone else who's been in a federal government department or a First Nation organization or their own community or wherever it is, who said, well, yeah, that happened to me and this is what I did. So if you are interested in those, again, reach out to info@fmps.ca. We'll make sure you're on that mailing list and we have those, because our goal is not that you go away, you had 2 days of great training and now you're just totally by yourself to implement RIM for the rest of your life. We want to make sure that this happens in an ongoing way. And I'll go, I'm hoping that there are some additional questions from the group, and I'll pull up the chat. I know there was a lot of information being shared in the chat, but you're welcome to add questions in the chat or just raise your hand or pop on your camera. And I'm sure Michelle or Stephanie will be more than happy to answer any of those questions for you. And rather than sit here while people are thinking about that, I'm going to ask one more question. What do you do essentially when you don't have any money for RIM? Because that's going to happen. That happens to everyone. You have a very limited budget. What are some of the steps you can implement kind of on a shoestring budget? What's the minimum you can do? Maybe Michelle, if you want to jump in, and then Stephanie.
Sure. The first thing that comes to, I am not muted. Good. Okay. The first thing that comes to my mind is having an inventory, some kind of an index of where your information lives. Because really, the basic definition that I have for records management is really knowing what you have, where you have it, then you can determine how long you need to keep it, right? So if you don't have an understanding of just where your records are, so you can just start by creating a very simple Excel spreadsheet. And it's something that, again, if you can devote a little bit of your time every week towards something like that, that goes a long way. because once you have it documented, especially in a spreadsheet, you're going to be able to do searches and filters and sorting, and you can use that information in so many other ways as you're building your program and as it matures along.
Thank you. Stephanie, what would you suggest if an organization just has no money to throw at the problem?
Yeah, no, that's great. And Michelle really hit it on the head there. That's a great way of organizing everything. And I think when it comes to, you know, even communicating out the changes, you know, you might not have money for that either, right? So on that front, it's sort of like, kind of just have to take it into your own hands and reach out to your colleagues, and just maybe it's starting small that way. It's saying, hey, this is what my team is doing. This is how we're organizing our, you know, RIM information. Like, how are you doing it? Maybe we need to do it the same way, and then maybe it'll start growing, and then something will be adopted, and then you can, you know, help each other out along the way. So as long as people aren't feeling alone, I think the adoption will be a little bit better, to be like, I like that idea. Let's keep rolling with it.
I hope I'm not missing them. I don't see any hands or questions in the chat, but if I am, jump in. Just interrupt me. But I have a slew of questions myself, because we do this at FNPSS. We're small. We have a very small budget, and we're always trying to deal with our records and information management. We have a fledgling IM policy, I would say, that's sort of been started and stopped and started and stopped. And we have a fairly decent practice, I guess, of people dealing with records. Just practically, common sense wise, we've decided what to do with them. They're two different, an IM policy and then an IM program. They complement each other. Well, how would you say, like, which one is more important, or are they equally important? And how do you address both of them, and how do you make sure they mesh together? The formal policy versus the program and implementing that. Maybe I'll go to Michelle first again.
Sure. So I see a RIM policy as being one of the key foundational elements of any RIM program. So in saying that, there's also the need to have a formal authority by way of a resolution or a law, bylaw, depending on your organization, right? Some kind of formal authority for why your organization is managing its information in this way, right? So your policy is really the tool that's going to help articulate, why are you doing it? Why is it important? Who is responsible for what, right? Then your procedures is really they support your policy, because they're really expressing how your policy becomes practical. What does this really look like in everyday terms, right? So when you say, well, you just have to manage your records. Wow, what does that mean? Right? So are we talking about, do we have to rename them? Do we have to, you know, do things like selecting which are official records versus those that are transitory, right? These are all things that we do all the time. But doing them in a consistent way, that's really where your program documentation comes into place, right? So I think even if you're starting your fledgling, having a drafted policy is great, excellent. I would personally focus more on your guidelines and your procedures, because that's the part that is really practical. This is the on the ground, what is happening, right? From there, you can always revisit your policy, right? But your procedural documentation, that's going to help whomever is in those positions, because we know positions change, right? We're not necessarily dealing with the same individuals all the time. So having that knowledge base recorded in a way that it's accessible for people to pick it up and use it. So whether you've got scanning guidelines or whatever it might be that you're addressing, document it. Have something there that says, why are we doing it and how are we doing it? In its very basic sense. I think that's really important, because such a big component of managing our recorded information is ensuring that it's authentic, it's trustworthy, it's not been tampered with, right? And that we're creating it, and our processes are reflecting our regular and ordinary courses of business. So if you're just starting out and you're like, but we're only just trying to, say move documents out of our email, save our emails out of Outlook into our shared drive or into SharePoint, whatever that might be, right? Why not have a procedural document, something there that's just going to illustrate, this is what we mean. This is what it is. So you're demystifying it, but it's also with your documentation, it's a really key element of any records program because it's evidence of how you're operating. So if your records ever come into question in terms of, well, have they been altered, right? Can we use this as evidence? Inevitably what will happen is you're going to be asked, well, what is your process? What are your record keeping processes, right? So of course, if you have a policy, that becomes part of that informational kit. But really in practical terms, it's procedures, it's guidelines. That's what I would suggest.
Thanks. And you just mentioned the evidence piece, which for First Nations, absolutely, it's a practice of good governance. It's something that has to be maintained for strong operations, but there is an aspect we can't deny in First Nation governments where there is a strong chance these will be used in evidence in some form of rights, title, land claims.
Absolutely.
Which I know people keep asking how to get your leadership engaged. I found that that's a really good way, reminding them that some of those cases that they're looking to move forward claiming rights and title, these will be very important aspects of that.
That's right.
Stephanie, did you have anything to add to that question about a policy versus a program?
No, I definitely agree with Michelle. I mean, having those, the policy, I think, complements the program, right? We go back to those policies to be like, okay, how, we have this program put into place and, documenting that is so important, like Michelle said, because you do have that turnover, right? You might have those people that leave, but if you can document that and have the manuals there, then you can just refer to the policies. Like, yes, this is what's helping us drive our program. So I definitely agree with Michelle, and I think that having that program put into place is really important.
Okay, I'm going to Wendy, you put something in the chat which I'll read out, and maybe if there, yes, it was Wendy. You were saying you don't have an IM policy, but IT helps you, supports you, let you know what to do with your emails. And you were saying that a coworker is implementing RIM and going to test it by having another coworker try the process to see how it needs to work. I think that's brilliant. Absolutely brilliant, because you don't know what's not going to work until you do it. And why have 60 people try it and then figure out it just doesn't work? Did that happen? Can I put you on the spot? Do you have anything to add from that? Did it work?
She's so I just thanked her yesterday because she was the one who said, do the FNPSS RIM workshops, do the classes, do everything. And I was like, okay, when I'm working on my master's program. So someone mentioned masters and doing RIM. Oh my God, that's so exciting. I was like, oh, I'm gonna make sure we have RIM stuff in here too. How can I do that? Anyway, sorry. She attended the class or a RIM records information management last year, and told her, okay, do whatever you can, find all the stuff. Like as soon as you see it on their thing, register. Okay, I'll do it. And yesterday I went to thank her, and she's like, so this is exciting. And I'm like, well, what? She said, well, now that it's been almost a year since I did it, and I've redone all my records and information and done all the stuff. Now she's like, next week, I think she said Tuesday, because she works at a little bit different hours than us. She's like, I'm gonna have one of them come in, and she's just gonna pick somebody random and see if they can find. I want them to find 4 things and see if they can find it. She said, because if they can't find it, then I'm doing something wrong. She's like, because really what we should be doing and considering also is succession planning with regards to records. Because like you guys said, if you can't find it and someone comes in and doesn't know where it is, well, you're paying that person basically to be a researcher for an hour. That's not what you're about. So she said, so I'm going to test it. And this is exciting. She's like, I wish this class happened next week so you could let them know, because she had already mentioned it. And I was like, oh, well, I'll let somebody know how it worked out. So I'm excited. I'm excited for her to try it, and we're going to try and actually do our records management exactly the same way, so that, like you guys said, the first day, like, you need a champion, but you also need to work together with departments. And because she's just next door to me, it's easier to get her input because she's already taken the classes and the workshops that you guys did last year. So thank you.
Oh, that's so fantastic. I actually can't wait to hear how that goes. And fabulous. I'm so glad. I'm going to one more question, and then someone had their hand up, and I think they put it down, but I might try to find them again. Where can you find, or suggestions on where to find templates for policies? Any documents related to this? I mean, you've had some infographics and tools. Is there anywhere you can suggest a participant might be able to go if they're just starting out and they want a template for a policy, a template for a RIM implementation program, tips and tricks, and any of those types of documents? Do you have any tips for that?
Yes, and you'll be delighted to know that I will reference you back to the FMPSS's toolkit. So that is one, right? And we know that it's being updated. So I imagine there'll be some other templates in there. And I'm just looking off to the side here, because I know we do have some templates for policy. I know Bobby Hembry was kind enough to provide us with that template from Tsleil-Waututh. So we do have that we can share out with participants. So perhaps what I can do is just connect with Amory after this closing session, and then he can add that and provide it out. So there'll be two policies. One of the RIM policies will be very short and sweet, 2-pager. The Tsleil-Waututh model is a little bit more lengthy, but might be exactly what you're looking for. Okay. And there's also a sample BCR. So if your First Nations interested in a RIM resolution, then we can provide you with that template as well.
Perfect. Thank you. So Amory just posted that we're going to be posting the recordings of these, okay, but we'll also make sure that any of those documents that are referenced to the sample policy from Bobby from Tsleil-Waututh, any of those others are added to the link.
Perfect.
We'll connect and make sure that's all there and share it all out. I guess one more place, we do have a Facebook group for First Nations administration, which you're welcome to. Oh, thanks so much, Michelle. You're on top of things. She's just put samples in the chat. You're welcome to reach out to that Facebook group and just see if anyone else on the group has something they can share. And if you're really stuck, of course, you can always email us again at FMPSS, and we will quite happily go out individually to other First Nations or other groups that we think might have something that they're willing to share, and see if we can connect you one-on-one. I'll go to Scott probably for our last question, because I think we're almost coming up on 11 o'clock. Scott, you had a question.
Yes, thank you. A little bit of a comment and question. I'm just trying to start my video and see here. Hang on, sorry. Just wanted to kind of express the importance that you was talked about a little bit about legal. Overall, I work for the ESDC. We have overall information governance policies, which include legal, IT, HR, and then the big component of that, which is records information management. But legal has a significant component of that. We deal with every single Canadian citizen really across the Western Territory. And for access to information acts, litigation holds, right? So even though from a records information management, you're really just looking at the life cycle of a document, how it gets opened, created, used, stored, accessed, and then eventually destroyed. There's legal aspects to that you'd hopefully have as part of your disposition authorities and who can delete them all and everything else. But those are ever changing based on legal precedents. So something that happened 30 years ago or 20 years ago, especially with the engagement with First Nations, Indigenous, new settlements, new everything, that needs to be consistently looked at and updated. Because something that you used to have to keep for 5 years, it might be 20 years now, or something for 20 is now 5. So as you're going through that, I just wanted to add that component in. I'm still working on it in litigation holds from the First Nations group up in the with the setting up of the territory in the north. Just forgot my, sorry, the equality is the capital, I'm sorry. That type of stuff. So that was, I was just going to make sure as part of your overall information management, making sure that you have that legal component and your records disposition is always updated, because that's absolutely key for not only access to information, but for litigation holds, or if you're dealing with financial records, you're going to have to worry about the CRA and the litigation holds from them. So there's little components you always need to know about. That's everything. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Scott. So we've come to 11:02. I'm gonna indulge our ask for all of your indulgement and ask Michelle or Stephanie if you have any last tips or words of wisdom. Maybe Stephanie, I'll go to you first on this one. What would you say people should keep in mind as they go away, if nothing else?
Yeah, when it comes to, especially, on the change side of things, and I'll speak to that, and communicating things out. Like I said, it doesn't take a big team to do it. I think it could be really anybody in an IM role, to get that message out there to people. And when you do, keep it simple. Keep it simple, try to keep it fun. I know information management, it's not always the funnest thing because it's, very technical at times. But yeah, if you can put that spin on it so people are really understanding it and maybe they have a better grasp of it, I think you'll get your message across a little bit better. So I hope that helps.
Oh, there we go. I'm unmuted. Thank you, Stephanie. Michelle, what about you?
Just to add on Stephanie's comment there, keep your lines of communication open and encourage discussion. Absolutely. And keep going. Keep going with what you have. Keep doing what you're doing. You're doing amazing. You'll get there.
Thanks. I would add what Michelle just said. If you are even trying to implement RIM, you're doing amazing. So keep going. Thank you. Thank you so much to Michelle and Stephanie. Thank you all of you for letting me pepper in little bits of how FNPSS might be able to help. We are so not the only resource though. So one of the pieces, it's just easier to direct you to us, and then we can send you off to the UBCI school or ARMA, as I think Joy jumped in, which is the Association of Records Managers that we work with, or another First Nation group. There's so many different people who are wanting to support this, and we can try to connect you. So thank you all. I think we're coming close to the end of your second day. So thank you again for all your time too. I know how busy everyone is. So taking 2 days to think and live and breathe records management. Thank you all for that. So one last time, Michelle and Stephanie, thank you so much for your time and sharing your experience and expertise. And Joy, I will turn it back to you.
Thank you so much, Jahan.
So thank you, Jahan, Michelle, and Stephanie. That was excellent. Also, Wendy, I love your enthusiasm. It's always great hearing your stories. Stephanie, thank you for the talk about change management. It is something our team is going through, and really appreciate what you've shared today. And thank you, Michelle, for sharing the importance of information management and emphasizing the need to make that time for your team to work on managing the records. I'm bad at that myself, so I've learned quite a bit. And I also love to hear about the very useful resources that are available for our First Nations communities from FNPSS. I myself felt like I've learned so much about RIM, and I hope everyone feels the same. Thank you again to all the presenters and to everyone that attended this event. I hope you learned as much as I did. We have a simple, short evaluation for you to fill out, and would greatly appreciate if folks could please take a couple of minutes to complete. And we will be putting it in the link, or the link in the chat. Next, we have a few more prizes to give out, and then we will have Elder Prince share some closing words. But first, Colette would like to say a couple of words of thanks. To you, Colette.
Hi, everyone. Thanks, Troy. I think I met most of you online already, but I'm Colette Anderson. I'm joining you today from the beautiful unceded territory, the Musqueam, Tsleil-Waututh, and Squamish peoples. And I just wanted to take 2 minutes to thank I guess, share a few words of thanks for this really fabulous 2 days we've had. I want to highlight that this is a FNPSS joint FNPSS and federal government event. And I think it's a great example of where the federal government and First Nations and partners can come together and share resources, share tools, support each other, build some relationships. And, the first folks I want to thank are all the speakers. I think we had a lineup of 16 or 17 speakers from the federal government, from First Nations, from some really important partners and RIM experts. So thank you so much for your time. I also want to thank the planning committee, because none of us would be here without our small but mighty planning committee. So thank you, Selena, Amory, Thomas, JJ, for putting all this together. And last but not least is Joy. I think we should all put our hands together and thank our fabulous MC. So thank you, Joy. That was fantastic. Thanks for guiding us through these 2 RIM days. So that's all I wanted to say. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining us. And we will be in touch. We will follow up by email and make sure everyone has the links and the presentations and access to all the great information we are able to share. So thanks, everybody. Back to you, Joy.
And Joy, I'm going to interrupt before I let you sign off, because I know Colette is way too humble to say it herself, but Colette, I'm sure many sleepless nights over this, as well as Amory, Callan, who's been behind the scenes, but primarily Colette and Amory, both from the feds and FNPSS, who have been working really, as she said, together to bring this happen. Thank you so much to both of them. They've done a wonderful job. So thank you.
Yes, I'd like to add to that, because Colette, she even got locked out of her place this week, and she still managed to get everything in order. So good job, Colette. So now we're gonna go to the prizes. So I will get Amory, or let's see. Okay, there we go. Okay, so there's 3 prizes. The first one will go to Melissa Adams. Are you online right now?
I am, thank you.
Yeah. Congratulations. Someone will be in touch with your prize. And then we'll go on to the next one. Oh, that's close. Sandra Cowling, are you online? Going once, going twice. Okay, I don't think she is. So we'll go and spin again. Damien Ponesh, you on? Doesn't look like it, so we'll remove him and go to the next. Okay, Gerald Rama. I don't see him, so we'll have to remove him as well. Oh, the suspense. Okay, next up, Veronica Daniels. That was super close. Are you online with us today?
Yes, I am. Thank you so much.
Congratulations. They will be in touch with you with your prize. Okay, this is the last one. Brenda Belmore. Are you online right now?
I'm here.
Okay, great. Congratulations. The FNPSS team will be in touch, and they will arrange delivery of your your prize. Okay. Well, thank you, everyone. We will hand it over to Elder Prince for your closing prayer and words.
Hey, thank you very much. It sounds like you guys had a very wonderful couple of days, and I would like to thank you for inviting me to do an opening and closing. I understand the records information management went really well, and when I heard about what you guys were talking about, and just even in the last few minutes here, because I've been thinking about it since yesterday, about how you guys are really collaborating, and one of the first words that I thought was like trailblazers. And a long time ago, we had to, the people that we sent out to create new trails or things like that, they had to really know the land. They had to know their environment, and they had to know where they were coming from and where they were going. And it's almost like the whole foundation of connection to the communities is these pathways that you guys are making, and that building that foundation. A foundation is the most important part of any building or any structure. So when I look at the foundation you guys are building and the ones you guys are collaborating about, all the records and the information that you document and you manage, to me, it brings a lot of knowledge, knowledge of the past, knowledge of your environment, and even anticipation, a knowledge of the anticipation of future success. So it makes me really honored to be speaking with you guys today, and to witness what the work you guys are doing. Yeah, that building that foundation and making those documents, like they were saying about how important it is to have the documents to really build trust, and that's what it does. Your records actually have a documentation that builds trust in your work, your communities, and that trust builds opportunity, and that opportunity actually builds partnerships, and those partnerships turn into blessings for you, for the community, for your work. And those blessings is what help us thrive. Not only me, but I think every community, every family is able to thrive because of that process. And even though a lot of policy driven or government standard concepts are talked about, the exact same thing happens in our culture. Like I was saying about the trailblazing, you have to know your land, you have to know your environment, and that's the exact way the government is issuing these policies and stuff, is so that they can be accountable and responsible and help the communities. So that's just a really wonderful for you guys for me to witness what you guys are talking about. And yeah, so I'll end with that, and I'll do the closing prayer, and then I'll translate it. Nesalcho ndo ya sinda suchonyan johne dosti uchaza so tinnegonen I etwene na chaya neto wade hoindil ne babashat tak hoi hasta in gezandit in kad nene tia babatsatni taz datli suchoyat tak et negahonar and it's in keznastecha ndones also du chazanyan ndani tatan et negahonar et wayn tahone quat anenzan Masinya Tatni, Great Spirit, who sits above and around us. We look to honor you. You've given us another day and we are honored. Our ancestors have spoken with us yesterday and today. We hope to understand what we are to say today will be for the good of our people and even all mankind. We ask that today and every day that we speak with wisdom you have bestowed upon us, now and the days to come. Great Spirit, we also ask that you help us understand the wisdom of our ancestors and that we live in the shadows of what they were. We wish it to happen this way. We say thank you. And that's a prayer in the hopes that we don't remember all of the, I guess, all of the bad things that we face, challenges, that our focus stays on moving forward. No matter how much brush and how much stuff you have to weed away and take out of your path and put in the right place, that you're going to have success and get where you're going. And so I really hope that no matter what it takes to get the job done, that you have the strength and guidance. And a long time ago, our Creator provided everything. You know, we were responsible for us to go out and be responsible for the land and for us to thrive in our environments. And that's what you guys are doing. So keep up the good work, and I hope many blessings on all of you. From our community to yours.
Like you, Elder Prince. The words that you share are always very touching and always at the right time. So thank you so much. And that is a wrap for our 2022 Collaborative Learning Days. Thank you so much to everyone that has participated, all the presenters and all the planners and anyone that's involved with bringing these days together. Thank you so much.
Thank you, everyone. Have a wonderful day.